Welcome in to the South Carolina American Revolution Sestercentennial Commission's webinar today. We're going to share our PowerPoint, if you'll give me 1 second to start the slideshow. Here we go. So we have, and let's see, am I showing the right version? Nope. Okay, let's see if I can share the right version here. Screen 2, there we go. So welcome in. I'm Heather Hawkins. We also have Parina Patel, who is online with us today. She is going to be helping us with all of the stuff as we go through. So thank you, Parina. Many of you have gotten to know her by email. We want to talk about, of course, this is the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Why are we celebrating South Carolina? Well, South Carolina is where it happened. Over 400 plus skirmishes, battles, and bloodshed during the American Revolution. The state with the second most incidents. Some people say first. We debate this with New Jersey, but we'll go with where the revolution was won, which is kind of our tagline. Now, people say, is it over? Fireworks on July 4th were great, but there is so much more. The Revolutionary era, we have decided, was 1770 to 1783, and that's an important date range. Many of y'all have heard me say this before. That takes us 2020 to 2033. This takes us from the Boston Massacre, where Crispus Attucks was the first American to lose his life in this American Revolution, all the way to the treaties of Paris in 1783. So far, this grant program has been going since the last part of fiscal year 22. We have given away 371 grants. This is almost $13.6 million that have been distributed across the state. So we are really getting the funds out there. Somebody from Hampton, I hope, needs to be on this call. We're really looking for partners in Hampton so we can continue to share the wealth there. We are excited to launch a brand new flow to our website. So this is SouthCarolina250.com, or I think you can still go to SC250.com, and it will transfer you to this page. And you go to resources and grants. And we're going to walk through this website. We've got grants and funding page, and we want to talk about the overview. So there's lots of information on that first page, but if you scroll down to grants overview, hit explore funding, then it takes you to the grants overview page about what's new. And let's talk about what's new. So what we're doing this year for the fiscal year 27 that goes from July 1st to June 30th of this upcoming year, we are backing away from doing every single month. We acknowledge that the big push was Carolina Days and July 4th. We doubled the number of grants we gave last year because of that. We are having to pull back because we are not going to have as much funding. So that's the reality check. And we also acknowledge that we were not necessarily the best at keeping up with paperwork. So we've got to get all the grants closed out that we've had, these 371 grants. Let's get them across the finish line. We need to spend more time doing that. So, and to enable us to do that, we are dropping back to four key dates a year. Those are our deadlines for the year. So that is quarterly review. That's one change. So our monthly quote unquote grants have now changed their title to community impact. This is still up through $15,000 for community impact, but the major projects are now up to through $50,000. Then premier projects go from $50,001 up to $125,000. So we've pulled back on those, the most you can ask. We've gone to quarterly, and we're setting our priorities to really think about longevity. Which projects are not single day projects? So a lot of Carolina Days projects were about one-day events. We are really shifting gears to make sure that we're doing things that have long-term impact. And that means trails, that means digital exhibits, that means education, things that can be in place for multiple years. That means helping genealogy so that we can get more people engaged. and doing that on a more permanent basis. Site acquisition, interpretation, and signage. We've, in this kind of in-between time, what we're calling the eye of the storm, we are, that's between July 4th, 2026, and when a lot of the battles and skirmishes here in South Carolina pick up, which is 29, 30, 31. Those will be our 30, 31 will be our big years. We'll have almost a battle a day. It'll be so busy. So we got to get those sites ready for visitors. So we want to really work on that during this time frame. So how we apply, well, I encourage you to kind of scroll down to that section, get started. And when we get to the get started page, it's going to walk us through here kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of decisions do you need to make as you're applying? A lot of this is not new to some of you guys. So, but let's just kind of review quickly. Are you a fit? Do you really talk about the American Revolution in South Carolina from 1770 to 1783? We are really going back to a strict interpretation of that. So make sure that you are in that time frame. That means that generic colonial, that means that even Constitution is outside of those years. So you've got to be really strict with that. And we can, of course, have a conversation about that if you want to set up a direct call with me. Another thing to look at is what has been funded already, those 371 grants. What are they? So we have a pretty up-to-date version, Word document or PDF that you can click on here on this first one and take a look at what's been funded. We don't want to duplicate services. If this is something that's already produced, it's already out there, we don't need it again. So maybe this is something that you want to kind of pivot a little bit on your event or your project so that it fills a need. So really think about the need in your community, your region, your state that's different from maybe what somebody else has done in the past. And also, the other part of step 1 is really making sure that you understand the fiscal agent. We've had a little confusion on this. So the only applications that can be individuals are research and publication grants. Otherwise, there has to be a separate fiscal agent. And we want to make sure that the fiscal agent is actually the applicant. So at the end of the day, they are responsible for this grant. They have to turn in the paperwork at the end of the day. You can do all the work for them in the system if you are the project director. But at the end of the day, if something happens, God forbid, to you, then this fiscal agent is responsible because they are the ones receiving the funds. So we want to make sure they are 100% on board when you sign them up to do this. So they really need to be the one signing the grant agreement if awarded. They really need to be the one signing that assurances and certifications in the application. So really think about that. They are responsible for at the end of the day for that financial information that has to come back to the state. So that's step 1. Other thing to make sure you're thinking about at this point is the grant distribution. We worked really hard because most state grants are reimbursement grants. And we worked really hard with the state to get an agreement that we could give 80% up front and 20% reimbursement upon approval of the final report with deliverables, with measurement of success attached, with receipts and proof of payment. Those are 2 different things. So an invoice and a separate proof that you paid it. Now, a credit card receipt is both, but most of your invoices, you can't just say it was paid and write paid on it. That does not count. So as you're setting up your procedures, if you're awarded, make sure you keep that in mind. And that will make the end of the day, that final report, go much smoother. Only items purchased or contracts made after an award date can be paid for with grant funds. So make sure you're understanding that. So that last 20% is reimbursement, but those items, anything that was purchased prior to an award date, which would be on your award letter, that they cannot be reimbursed by grant funds. So make sure that you understand that and that your fiscal agent understands that. And best practice is make sure you're negotiating your contracts accordingly. They may have to wait a minute to get their funding. You make sure your terms with them are understood with that. All right, number 2 on our new flow on our website is select your funding level. And this probably should say select your funding opportunity, because that's what it's going to say when we get in Webgrants. We, again, have shifted a little bit to monthly grants are now community impact grants. Those are up through $15,000. Those do not require a match, but we do encourage match for that one. We are still trying to turn those over in relatively like about a month to give you an answer, but due diligence could stretch that a little bit, but keep that in mind when you're applying. And with having only 4 deadlines a year, we're going to really have to emphasize planning ahead for these applications. Major project grants are $15,001 up to $50,000, 20% cash match of your total budget, not your ask amount. So that is, those are 2 different numbers. That 20% match is required for those. And if you can do more, great, but that is required for that. And do note that these major project grants do include a consultation grant webinar or work session virtually that we have with our commissioners that are interested to be a part of that. That's part of it. And we plan to take this to the full commission with a few exceptions allowed to go to the executive committee. But mostly this will go to a full commission meeting. You will not have to do a presentation unless asked in addition to do that by the commissioners. Premier projects are $50,001 to $125,000, so a new cap. And keep in mind, this does take that virtual grant work session. You will have to present at the full commission meeting, 5 slides, 5-minute presentation at the commission meeting following your application, and Q&A will be a part of that. Okay. So step 3, so again, a lot of people get bogged down in the grant type. So make sure you're thinking funding first. So start with your budget that you've built and where does it fall within these funding opportunities. And then you think about your grant type. And I do encourage you, once you've kind of figured out which one it should fall under, hit the learn more. There are specifics under each one of these on the website. So you may see that the museum and library style exhibit grant, if you're not having this in your own venue, if maybe you're going to put it in the county annex, for people to see because there's more traffic in the county annex. Or that's a new audience that you want to reach, or it's going to a school district office or someplace where it gets foot traffic. You need to include a memorandum of understanding with that organization. That needs to be part of your application. So that's specific to that type. So there are some regulations like that are listed on this. Another one would be research and publication. You have to use Chicago style manual, the most recent version, in your work. So make sure that you're looking at those specifics for those different applications. Number 4 is get your paperwork ready. So fiscal agent documentation, a signed W-9, make sure it's signed. I cannot tell you how many times we've gotten W-9s that were not signed. Make sure you have a current adopted budget and most recent operating financial statement. And state vendor number can come later, but you will have to have it if awarded. And make sure you have determined those project director, the fiscal officer, and authorizing official. Nonprofit documentation only if applicable. You'll need those 4 things. And then again, go ahead and figure out what those deliverables, those measurements of success, that timeline, the budget, get those quotes for that budget. Do all those kinds of things to get your paperwork ready. Number 5, explore partners and funding. I just today sent to the executive committee a new matrix on scoring. So if any of you might be some of our reviewers out there, we are changing our scoring for this upcoming year because of these shifting priorities. And we are moving, we had partners as a bonus point. to the application matrix, but we are changing it. It's now going from 5-point bonus points to 20% of your scoring. So partnerships are important. We are not going to be able to fund everything because we know our funding is pulling back. So we've got to help, there's even a downloadable list of partners that we have connected with or partner ideas for you. But this especially means money, but it can also be in kind. It can also, and think about not just are they a friend, but what are they bringing to the table? And we'll talk about that as we go to do a demo in a minute. And then let's get ready to apply. So everything has to go through the Discover SC Webgrants program. I want to thank PRT for letting us be a part of their system. And these are the components that we'll be going through as we do the demo. I want to talk about some best practices before we do that, though. So we'll have a Word version that we'll send you as a part of a follow-up for this call. Use it to practice. Watch your character counts. So we want to make sure these are character counts, not word counts. That if you have a much larger, I think it's a good practice to have a application kind of overview document, that master plan, especially if you are a premier project, you're having to bring a master plan to the table anyway. So go ahead and create that. That can be an attachment. But as you work in this Word version, that is not your application, but it helps you. You can cut and paste from the Word version, and it helps you know which documents to get together as such. Project summary. So the first part of the narrative, you've got your elevator speech and how does it relate to the American Revolution in South Carolina. So that's really important. This needs to be easy to understand. All of these pieces are going to be cut and pasted into a condensed version that will go to the commissioners. So it needs to be really easy just to look down, read that elevator speech, that first answer on the narrative, and understand your program. Be really careful with that. And if you are not talking about the American Revolution in South Carolina, 1770 to 1783, we need to talk because that second answer is super important as well. All right, tangible items. So deliverables, what is the expected outcome is the question that's in that deliverable section. And when we say that, we mean tangible items. At the end of the day, what are you going to have? Are you ordering supplies? Are you producing a document? Are you, what are those tangible things that you will have at the end of the day that you can attach that final report and say, check, we did it. Measurement of success. So how are you going to measure, was it successful? What are you going to look at to do that matrix on the end at the end of the day? And really think about that longevity question. That's going to be one of those ones that, again, the budget, the partnerships, and the longevity get the most points in our new scoring matrix. So those are things to really look at. Some budget best practices. My first piece of advice for everybody is know what your project is and then build a budget. Start with the budget and don't ask for the max amount just because you can. What's your budget? What do you actually need to get this done? And then work backwards from there. So do your homework, get some quotes. Again, we've got these only 4 deadlines a year, but that gives you some time to kind of work on those quotes as you get ready. Not all budget categories may be compatible with your grant type, so you can feel free to skip those. And if the grant request amount is part of a larger budget, please only include the SC250 funding request in each breakdown section. When you build that budget in your application, that is your ask budget. You can have a separate full project budget, and I encourage you to attach that in your additional attachments. But the part in the actual budget application, that is your ask budget. Make sure not to exceed the total amount available. That I think the system now will not let you do that. So make sure you're watching that though as you build. Personnel refers to staffing, while contractual refers to any person you're hiring for a specific task. That's how I like to break it down. So personnel is any overhead administration task. And then if you have like a staff historian, or if you're hiring, particularly if you're hiring, but even a staff historian that might be doing the work, I would put that under contractual just to distinguish those two. We like to keep administrative overhead separate from the contractual, and that's really important. And administrative staffing is not their favorite thing to see in a budget, just be honest. But you are allowed, you can represent no more than 20% of your budget request. If it's more than that, we'll have to come back to you and it may not go through review. So make sure that you are no more than 20% for administrative staffing. And again, if you can cut it out altogether, and that's great. Okay, here's some other things we can't fund. Food, insurance, travel, and accommodation. Tip on that is if you have like a demonstrator coming to an event, or make sure that their honorarium or their invoice just simply says fee. Make it a fee. They can spend that money on travel and accommodation all day long if they want to, but we cannot pay for travel and accommodation. All right, security is another item. That's a lot like insurance. It's a liability shift question, so we want to make sure we stay out of that. Acquisition and of artifacts. So I had a call just yesterday. So if you are a museum or if you're doing an exhibit, we have funded reproduction items that were part of a installation, but we cannot purchase actual artifacts. That is a state kind of mandate. I think it's pretty federal as well. They do not do acquisition. No drones, no fireworks. In addition, we just would never have been done with that if we allowed those items. So when you go to look at your cost share, your match, community impact grant, not required but encouraged. Major grant, 20% of that total budget, not the ask. Premier project, 25% total budget. When you look at that, that cannot be in kind. We love to see in kind. We love to hear about that in your partners section. Please include that. But when you go to do the actual cost share in your budget section of your application, make sure that there's at least 20% or at least 25% with that match has to be cash. And that's really important to know. All right, and you will have to document that match in your final report. So keep that in mind, keep those receipts and that proof of payment as well. And let's see, here is how you figure out if, I encourage you to start with that total budget and then do the 20% or the 25% off of that. But if you have your ask figured out first, then you can use this formula to figure out what the match should be. I will also note that when we're in the demo, you'll see that it will calculate for you when you're putting it in the match section. And again, we'll send these slides so you can have this formula if you need to use that. Okay, it is demo time. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides and I'm going to let's see if I can escape. This thing is always so tricky. All right, I'm going to close these. You'll give me 1 second. Go back and share my screen. There we go. Right, I think y'all are now seeing my my internet connection here, my web browser. So I'm going to sign in as an outside user so you can see it from your perspective. Mine looks a little different when I am doing it myself. So the first thing, let me go back. The first thing is you do need to register. If you're not already registered, please do so. When you fill this out, it's important to make sure that you select SC250 so that comes to me. Every applicant who wants to register has to be approved in the system. That's really just to keep us from having duplicates. So, and you can use, if you already have one that you use for a tag grant with PRT or something like that, you can use that to apply for SC250. So you don't have to have another one for us. But If you're registering new, make sure that you are selecting the SC250 so it comes to me. The other thing I will mention is that it does require, let's see where I go in here. It does require you to have an EIN number. So if you do not have a federal employer identification number, what I suggest you do is do individual when you register, and it will skip that one. Again, eventually you're going to have that one of those numbers. So keep that in mind. But for right now, if you need to, you can do individual there. And then you'll get an email once you are confirmed. It'll also send you a temporary password. And then you get to change it to something you can actually remember, hopefully. And then once you get signed in with your new password, you should be able to see a screen like this. And as I mentioned, those funding options are really funding opportunities. So you're going to look here on the left to the tab and go to funding opportunities. You'll note that we're in here right along with the state parks. They have some other programs. I encourage you to check these out, particularly this Undiscovered South Carolina. That is an excellent grant to help with small towns and small venues. And then if you're not getting tag grants as well, that's another great one that they do. All right, so you'll see we have our 3 funding opportunities based on the amount. And I am going to click on the first one, which is the Community Impact Grant, up through $15,000. Note that this has this new fiscal year. If you had started an application last fiscal year, so prior to us launching the pages again on August 1st, and with the new funding opportunities, if you had started a previous application, you will have to clone it into a new application. It should work where it copies everything, but be aware it may not. So I would try to save some of that if you can. I mean, it'll still be there even if it's withdrawn. You can still get to your application, but you do need to copy it into the new application. So you would copy, and if you're starting new, you start with the Start New application. If you're copying an existing application, you select, obviously I've been in here a lot, so you would select one of these to copy. And again, it could be like this withdrawn one. You can clone a withdrawn application. And what I encourage you to do is once you do clone something, if you did not submit it last year, I encourage you to actually withdraw last year's and copy it into this new fiscal year opportunity. So once you've selected one, then you hit this copy application button, and it would create the new application for you. Now, I actually started already, so let's see if I can find the one that I started. All right, historic tourism marketing. This is the one I started already. So once you've created it, you can come back to it in applications. And I'm going to edit my application. And you'll see I now have these components that I want to complete and get this check mark here. So I'm going to start always, especially if you're copying an application, you're going to want to come in here and remove copy at the end of your title and change up your title. This is the primary person who gets automatic notices from the system. And you can have multiple organizations. Say you're a member of county council, but you're also on the 250 committee, and you also volunteer at the museum, and you're doing applications for all 3. You can have multiple organizations that you're associated with. So you select the correct organization, and anyone else that is associated with that organization that's active should pop up here. And so I could add Molly as an additional contact. That way she also gets notified and can work within the application. You cannot work in the same application unless you're listed on this page.
So excuse me,
yes.
Heather, I'm sorry to interrupt. Am I the only one seeing just the SC250 logo on the screen?
No.
Okay. All right, I meant I was gonna interrupt her. I was trying to find ways to like send in the chat or something, but and you kept saying you were gonna send the PowerPoint, but I just see the logo on the screen. I don't see any of the demonstration. I was trying not to interrupt, but
Let me see. So I am sharing my web screen.
you might have to click on another screen if like there's two of them.
So let me see. Yeah, no, it is, according to my you are sharing screen, it is showing the Discover SC Web Grants page. Is everybody saying the same thing, or do we have okay, that's very
I see
interesting.
what you're sharing.
You see what I'm sharing?
Okay.
Jeremy, did you come in as audio only?
I don't think so. I just clicked on the link in the email.
I'm opened in the web browser, Heather, so I can't see it either.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's something on our
we've
end.
got some kind of
Yeah.
scenario where they have
I had to
upgraded.
go out of the web browser and go back in through the link for everything to work correctly.
Yeah, I think Zoom has created an issue where it is allowing people only to come in through audio if you haven't updated your app on your computer. And we may have to, figure out if there's a workaround for next time. But so I think people who do have their camera option that didn't go in through the web browser are able to see. Am I hearing that correctly from Anne and Carl? And can you see what I'm sharing?
I see.
I see it,
Yeah, okay. So
but I
again,
went through
I am
with
sorry
the
for
link.
the not being those who are on audio only not being able to see the screen. We will be sharing the this video, which will include the images, and we will be sharing the slides that I presented earlier. We'll send that out to everyone following this. So I do apologize for the confusion. So, right. Okay, so one, I'm going to just jump back in and continue. I hope you this helps a little bit, just being able to hear it. We are going to save our information for generic information. We are going to go to cover sheet. And on this section, are you located in South Carolina? It better be yes. If the answer is no, please reach out to me. This can be overridden by the full commission. If you are specifically working on a project that is the money's still going to come back into South Carolina, and it is about South Carolina and the American Revolution. It's 1770 to 1783. But these are rare exceptions when they approve that. We do occasionally approve the individuals or even organizations that are outside of South Carolina doing research and publication. That is our main exception to this rule. So but still reach out to me and let's confirm everything if you are not located in South Carolina. Does your project specifically pertain to the American Revolution in South Carolina? The answer better be yes, right there. So, okay. So in the example I'm doing, I made up a fictitious county named after our former chairman. So Backley County is a government, and we're doing an historic tourism and marketing grant. So I selected those two. I'm going to edit this form so you can see these as well. Okay. Now, this answer really needs to be applicant. We do have on here another fiscal agent or individual, so you can select individual if you are applying as an individual, again, only for research and publication grant. But I really prefer applicant. So the even if the fiscal agent is not, if you are filling this out and you don't represent the county, but you represent the 250 committee, still make sure that you understand that the actual grantee is going to be the fiscal agent. So the applicant is the fiscal agent. So I put in project director in this example, again, a 250 committee member, and works with the county chamber as well. But the fiscal officer is Alexander Hamilton, of course, and we want to make sure that the address that you have here is going to match your state vendor number. That is very important. So make sure that you are doing it, that you're really careful with that address on the fiscal officer. Now, I answered no here because in this scenario, George Washington has to approve anything that Alexander Hamilton is doing on the finance end. So before it goes to finance, George has to sign off on it. So that may not be the case in your organization. So you would say, is the authorizing officer in the same as above? You may say yes. But if not, then put no and put who that person is. We try to keep them in the loop. I have to do it manually, but I try to keep them in the loop when there's an award letter or anything into that issue. There's a link here to procurement so that you can, if you don't already have a state vendor number, and you can get that one there, and make sure you do not have to have this at the time of application. So it's not required, but you do have to have it to receive funds. So every time you save, it's going to take you to the top. I've gotten everything filled out on this one. I'm going to mark it as complete. You'll now see that I have 2 check marks here. So our goal is to get check marks all the way down. And I'm going to try to speed up just a little bit so we have a little time for questions. I'm going to edit my form. Again, this is that elevator speech. Very important. It will get copied into your contract if awarded. And again, your Revolutionary Era, pick your county. This will auto-populate once you click on it. And let us know if you've gotten funding before. Now, right here, I have an explanation of plan based on these questions because I'm doing historic tourism and marketing grant. But if I change this to local activities grant, I have all these new questions. So I would have to select one of these options from local activities. I can say other and write that out. But then it gives me these questions to answer in this section. So note that these questions change based on your grant type. This is really the only section where it makes a huge difference, this and support documents. So make sure that you're reading these questions before you're completing your execution of plan. And there's lots more characters allowed in the execution of plan. And again, you can attach your master plan to the support documents. Scholars and peer review is important. Make sure you're writing out specifically who those people are, or if you don't have them selected yet, you make sure that you have a system that you're going to select those people through. And then this is important. Everything that is approved as a grant must have prior review before it goes into production. So build that into your timeline. The project promotion, how are you, in this example, it's the whole thing is about promotion. But if you're doing an event, if you're doing a project, even writing a paper, how are you going to promote this once it's completed? Deliverables. I really like when you do them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, list them like that. That really makes a difference. And again, these are tangible items. These are not your hopes and dreams of what the end result will be. This is the expected outcome are these tangible items that we will have at the end of the day. So make sure you number them. Again, these get copied directly into your contract if approved, as do these measurements of success. Again, list them 1, 2, 3, 4 is great. Inclusion is very important. So how is your project going to talk about African Americans, Native Americans, women and children? How are you going to talk about loyalists? How are you going to talk about, remembering that each county has its own stories? Make sure that you're talking about, you're reaching out to your community outside the major city. Even that is considered being inclusive, making sure that the rural areas of your county or your community are getting this information. Participation and access. So everything that is state funds has to have state public access, public funds, public access in some manner. If you have any questions about that, we have approved occasionally having a fee for an event as long as it is greatly reduced based on the grant funding. And it can be contingent upon that grant funding. But we really prefer things to be free, to be honest. But talk to me if you have questions about that, and we can work through that. Engagement. So what are you going to do that's outside the regular, let's do a lecture? I can't take another lecture application, no, I'm sorry. So let's make sure that we are really looking for something creative, engaging people, interacting with people, getting them excited about all these stories. Longevity, again, trying to move away from one-day events. At least have it recorded, at least have it a template created for it so another community can duplicate the event. You know, and talk about, is this going to be sustainable through 2033 at least? Is this a product that's evergreen? If it is, this is where you talk about that. Partnerships, and again, this is now 20% of that score. So make sure, and I would probably want to put more information here, but I put, you know, Baxley College professors are providing time and student engagement. The Baxley County Museum, not only who's going to do it, but what are they providing? What are they bringing to the table? And if they're bringing funds, that's even better. Now, I have not added timeline yet. A lot of times it's easy to forget this. So you want to save this. It'll take you to the top of your screen. All right. It'll think about it. And sometimes it does. Oh, you know why? Because this field is required. So if you ever have that, go to the top. It should have given me, sometimes it does. It gives, or it'll just highlight the one and it'll put red underneath there. Let's see, test. All right, so those two were required. I should be able, and all of these save buttons are the same. So it takes me to the top. I will scroll down, add a row. So you got to scroll all the way back to the bottom, and 3 or 4, but we need at least 3 or 4 benchmarks. So for this, we're going to have a plan written, for marketing plan written. Will be one benchmark, you know, and quotes received by, you know, let's see, make sure these dates are after your award date too. That's very important to think about. All right, so now it's added this row. If you ever get where it's acting funny, it's because you have a blank row. So make sure that you look for that. And you just keep adding rows till you have 3 or 4. That last one that you put in should be when everything is completely, when do you think you're going to be completely done, ready to submit a final report? That should be your last item there. All right, assurances and certification. Please read this. This is important stuff. It basically says, we're not going to hire a disbarred person. We understand that if a grant match is required, we're responsible. And this is really should be information of your fiscal agent. So again, I put George Washington, and because it's a municipality or a county, there's an elected official. We just don't want the highest elected official in your county to not know that you're applying for a grant. So make sure they're looped in, make sure they're listed here, and that they know that their organization that they're in charge of is applying, and mark it as complete. You don't have to have that additional one if you're not a government agency. I'm going to go back and mark narrative complete as well. Support materials. This first one, you are encouraged, not required, but you are encouraged to loop in your County 250 if you are not the applicant. If you're not the County 250 applying, I should say. So I've attached my agreement with so in this case, the fiscal agent is the county, and here's our agreement that we have with the county that they're going to handle the money for the County 250. So I've attached that there. These 3, in this case, this check mark does not mean complete. It's not green. It means required. That stumps everybody. So make sure that you see something in this file name or you're not uploaded. So what you do is if it is blank, so if you are a nonprofit and you can hover over anything that's blue over here, click on it, and this pop-up comes up. And you can, you do have to put a description, and you save your file, and then you'll upload something. So we have those items that are required. You can scroll down. Obviously, if you're read these other ones, this is required for signage and marker. You need to have the landowner or a deed if the applicant is the landowner. You know, you need to attach that in your signage and marker grant. So there are other additional requirements based on the type over here in support documents. And then anything additional would be here. You just add a new attachment, just like you would with doing your timeline. All right, but we're going to say that we've gotten everything done. So I'm going to mark that as complete. And our last segment is the budget. So we have county staff time. Again, I separated out this administrative time. We prefer not to see it, to be honest, but it is allowed up to no more than 20% of your ask. So that's separated from any kind of like the graphic designer who works at the chamber. You know, that one's going to be listed separately under contractual breakdown, or maybe they're hiring someone to do that. So I've listed those items. Again, equipment, not buying any equipment, so I don't put anything there. This is another case where if you find that your if you find that your system is telling you can't submit it, it probably means you have a blank one. You have a blank row that you accidentally started and didn't put any information in. And it's going to want you to complete it before you submit. And if you come down to this, everything above here is your ask budget, and then your cost share is your cash. It has to be cash for this match. And this is an example of a community impact grant. It's actually not required, but encouraged. So I listed back to County Business Alliance providing $5,000. And you'll see that we have a percentage of match is 27%. So this is where you need to see 20% if it's major and 25% if it is premier project. And this is, again, of the total amount, not a percentage of your ask. Once you have everything you need in here, and if you have quotes, please attach them in the additional support documents. All right, now we have check marks all above. It's now green here and says application is in compliance. Submit application. Now, before you hit this red button, you can go back and change things. But once you hit the submit button, it is submitted. So I am actually not going to hit that button so that I can continue to use this one in demos. So this is our application in full. I'm going to stop sharing. And I do want to go quickly back to show you my last moments here. The slides. Oh, and that's the wrong slide. Tell you what, we're just going to stop sharing. Okay. So, real quickly, does anybody have any questions? Okay, I think Mary Ann, I think you're trying to talk there. I think you should be able to unmute yourself. Let me see.
There we go. Okay, it's letting me unmute now.
Hi.
Hi. I have a lot of questions, so we may have to have just a sidebar. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but you said it moved to 4 times a year. So when is the next grant application
Great
due?
question. So September 1st is the next deadline. So
Okay.
coming up pretty quickly, September 1st, and all deadlines are at 3 p.m. Please note that.
Okay.
So that, and at 3 o'clock it shuts off. So, and I'd be glad to meet with you one-on-one. We do have a way you can schedule that through the website. So it just scroll down that main page until you get to consultation, and you can click on there. It's connected to my my calendar, and you can select a time that works.
Okay. And then when would the award be? If you, let's say you got it in September, when would those monies be awarded? Because this is kind of timely. I'm actually calling on behalf of another group that wanted to know, but they could not be on this call today. So
Sure. And I'm going to go, if you go to grants and you scroll down, so here's the schedule of consultation. And when you're exploring funding, it should, if you'll click, there should all of the deadlines and okay, there's a key dates there for, these are our deadlines.
okay.
We come down to funding opportunities. It gives you some generic information here, but once you go forward and to get started, and you go to the funding opportunities, it should have award dates on there. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Award notification. So the first business day, so community impact, we try to turn those around in a month. That is our goal. So the first business day of the month following submission. So September 1st, you should know by October 1st. That's our goal. And there may be some due diligence, additional questions, but that you'll hear something from us by October 1st. The major projects and premier projects, those are the first business day following a commission meeting. We try to, you can listen in, or you may be required to be a part of the Zoom call for premier projects, but you can listen into that meeting and know then if you're awarded or not. And then we would send official notification letters out the first business day following the commission meeting. So, for example, September 1 deadline, our November meeting is on November 12th. So that would be, we'd probably send those award letters out on, if not the 13th, by the 16th. So, and we can put some actual dates to those if we might need to update that, Karina, so that we can give us some dates there.
Okay, and that could be an issue because this would be an evergreen annual project that would go on, but it would take place the first week of December. And y'all aren't going to have.
So what I can say is that if you got an award letter, say on November 13th or the 16th, anything, if you're awarded, and that the date on that award letter will actually be the commission meeting date, which would be the 12th. So anything that you purchase or any contract that you make on the 12th or afterwards would be reimbursable with grant funds once they arrive. It does take a minute to do a contract, get it signed. It takes 30 days to get money through the state finance department once that contract is signed. So it does take a minute. And just be upfront with you. But you can get reimbursed with that money. You can use that money to reimburse yourself once it comes in, if the thing is purchased
After the
or if the contract is on or after the award date.
Right. Okay. That would be really cutting it close because this would really need to happen December the 3rd. So that's really cutting it close.
Yeah, that's one thing about having the 4 cycles. We are, but it means, we want to make sure we're doing the best with the money that we have.
Oh, sure.
And going through a real review process. So thank you for understanding.
Okay. And then is it a requirement to be a nonprofit, or if a for-profit operation has a nonprofit division or whatever?
Yeah.
Does that make it?
For-profits are rare. They are allowed, but we have 1 or 2 that we have approved in the past. They are not their favorite. But it is allowable as long as this is not I'll say that the ones that they have approved in the past, one was to help grow a tour program for the community and a after school program for our community. Another one I'm trying to think what the other one was. I think there were 2 of them. So it really needs to be in service to the community. Public money, public funds, public access. So it can't really be to help grow your business.
This is no, not at all. This is actually a financial institution, but they are required to have something I think called, I want to say it's CRA. About 50% of their total budget has to go to community outreach. Whether that's a separate nonprofit bucket, I don't know that yet. But this would affect all of South Carolina, from Dillon to every place. This is not just in like the main higher, the cities. This would go all over the state.
It sounds like we probably need to have a separate conversation. Let's just, like I said, go back to that. At the bottom, I think, of every page. Let's see. No, it's not on this one. But if you go back to the main grant page,
your calendar is.
Yeah, so going back to the main grant page and then scroll down, schedule a consultation. That is linked directly to my calendar. So you can see my calendar from there.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Because we are having to cut short because we have a executive committee meeting that we're supposed to be in right now. So anybody else
I'm
have
gonna
a
jump.
quick
I've got a
question?
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All
I
right.
had a question about a grant that has already been awarded. Is that something I need to email or call you about?
Yes, if you don't mind, like I said, since we've got to get on this executive call, I'll be glad to chat with you about that. I ask you to copy Parina at
Okay.
grants at SouthCarolina250.com. That goes kind of for everybody. If y'all send me an email, copy Parina. She gets your email faster than I do. And she knows the system backwards and forwards.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody else? All right. Super duper. Thank you, everybody. And again, I'll send a follow-up email with lots
Thank
of
you.
information.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.